Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That is Jack. I am Connor. This is the 45 with coming back from a 2-week international break where, for some stupid reason, we're still playing international matches. I don't understand it. We've got some COVID situations as a result of it. It's tough enough to play domestic football. Never mind also getting players on planes to fling them around the planet to play.
Yeah, we've seen another lockdown in England. We're seeing different protocols everywhere. And then they have the brilliant idea, all right, let's throw everybody, just mixture everybody, just jumble it all together. It makes no sense. The games have to... Well, the frustrating part is there was international friendlies. The United States played 2 friendlies against Wales and Paraguay. Why? Who gains from
Panama.
that? Who?
Panama.
Who?
It was Panama.
Oh, sorry. My bad. I'm showing my lack of global understanding yet again. Oh, this is like 3 videos in a row. This is a tradition now.
Not good.
Traditional.
All right. So we will start off with Newcastle hosting Chelsea. So Chelsea have been much improved defensively. 3 clean sheets in their last 5 matches. Meanwhile, scoring 14 in those same 5 matches. 3 wins, 2 draws from that span. Meanwhile, Newcastle, we've talked about them being very inconsistent. 2 wins, 2 losses, and a draw over their 5. They were blanked by Southampton. They beat Everton, drew Wolves. They got crushed by United and beat Burnley fairly handily. But that's just a club that we can't figure out. Yeah, Chelsea, on the other hand, maybe a top 4 contender.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Newcastle very inconsistent. Chelsea, I think they are... It's tough. I think this match is not going to be the one that proves that they're actually for real, but they've played really well in the last several matches. They have been against inferior opposition compared to their draws against Southampton, Manchester United, as well as West Brom. I lived with those for 3 consecutive weeks with maybe 1 match in between them. So still a lot of question marks for them, especially without Pulisic, who's a consistent injury worry. Thiago Silva, very consistent at the back for them. Kai Havertz, not sure if he's going to play. And Ben Chilwell, I think, is the big one that they may miss because having him at left back has been a game changer because you didn't have Marcus Alonso being Marcus Alonso. You had a genuine top 3 potential left back in the Premier League. And so injuries, I think, should Chelsea be on the favorable side of those with Havertz and Chilwell? They should be favorites against Newcastle. But it's like a lot of the games today, it's going to be the same theme. Who's for real? How much of their first 9 matches is a fluke or how much is sustainable?
Next up, Spurs hosting City. Interesting one. So Guardiola now has a new 2-year deal. Mourinho is getting his project going. Spurs have looked great. Winners of 4 of their last 5. Those last 4 have been very tight 1-goal affairs with the 3-3 draw against Hammers. That second half was just bonkers, showing some fragility perhaps for Spurs. Meanwhile, City are 10th. They have the game in hand. But they've got a series of very binary 1-0, 1-1, 0-1 results from their last 5. 2 wins, 3 draws. Hard to tell what that team is just yet. They're certainly not a number 10 team in this league. But it's unclear how much of that was affected by uncertainty around Guardiola's contract, overall commitment to the club, the project going forward. But either way, this is going to tell us a lot about the project that these clubs have going on.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned that draw against the Hammers, and I was going to talk really positively about Spurs. And now you've kind of reminded me that we should not get carried away because they've shown a penchant to be poor at the back, a bit leaky, as well as not the strongest mentally. I think that's just kind of Spurs as a club. They're known as being a bit of a club that bottles trophies. It has to be said. Man City, they aren't immune to that kind of same criticism. Especially after Sterling's miss last year against Lyon in the Champions League. Harry Kane and Son are on fire. 23 goal contributions for Kane through the first matches. 8 more than anybody else, and the one who's second in that is Son, who has 15 himself. So they've got 2 guys who are red hot against a City side who, as you mentioned, those binary results, they're not conceding much. So it's going to be a clash of 2 strengths, and it is going to be a case of, I think, City probably are on a good area, I think. If they have Sterling and Aguero fit to play, then I think that contract from Pep might be that a little morale boost that they need to get a huge result away from home. That being said, Spurs have been great. We'll see how good they actually are. The consistent theme of today's episode.
Fernandinho and Ake both out for City. A year ago, 2 years ago, you'd be really concerned with Fernandinho being out, but I think with their reinforcement at the back, it doesn't concern me as much. Ake, maybe that's a little bit more concerning because he was partnering well.
Yeah, Diaz and Laporte, I mean, you'd hope so considering how much you spent on both of them, but they look great at the back. They look a different level of secure that City have not had in a long time, and it's something that you really build off of. When you're secure at the back, you can have those 1-0s, 1-1s, especially against a very good Liverpool side, because you know that you're strong defensively. You don't need to outscore your opponents like they maybe have had to in recent years.
Next up, Leeds and Arsenal. Leeds losing 3 of their last 5, win and a draw along with that. The 4-1 losses to Palace and Leicester are concerning. Heading into the international break, giving Bielsa something to think about over those 2 weeks and stew on a little bit. But they did have the draw against City and a 3-0 win against Villa. Both of those are good results. Arsenal continue to struggle creatively. If Aubameyang and Lacazette aren't able to score, they don't score. They don't do much. They don't have a lot of other creativity there. They've lost 3 of their last 5 as well. A couple wins along the way. City, Leicester, and Villa, not terrible losses, but they just lacked spark. Mm-hmm. They did beat the Uniteds of Sheffield and Manchester, but those are mediocre bright spots for an Arsenal club that Arteta's just not. They're not firing right now in that midfield creatively.
That is a very fair statement to make. I think, especially with Partey, I believe he's out for this weekend due to injury. It's gonna be a big deal because he's been great for them as a holding mid, where he's been with Granit Xhaka. They've been 2 great midfielders for Arsenal, and we mentioned every time we talk about Arsenal, they are not creative in the midfield. And yes, you can blame Aubameyang for not scoring, you blame Lacazette for not finishing his chances, but Aubameyang has very little XG. Like, he's not getting in positions to score goals because he's not being created for. So yes, you have an issue with Aubameyang, but also he's not being aided by the fact that he's not getting much creativity from deep. And so Arteta's had 2 weeks to think about it, try and fix things. So I wouldn't be surprised if he pulls another tactical masterclass out of the hat. But same thing with Bielsa. So these are 2 sides who I think have a lot to prove, a lot to still figure out about themselves in the next coming weeks. And their managers also have a lot of tinkering that they can do. So this could be another interesting match. This is an early one on Sunday. So early wake up, but could be a very exciting game. I usually am not very excited for Arsenal games because they don't score a ton of goals. But this one I think could actually be quite interesting.
Yeah, this has 4-3, 5-4 potential all over it. Next up, Liverpool hosting Leicester. Another COVID-19 player out, Mo Salah for Liverpool. They are just a mash unit. Henderson is out with injury. Fabinho and Thiago maybes to go along with that depleted back line for Liverpool. They still managed to win 2 and draw 2 after the 7-2 shellacking they took at the feet of Aston Villa. Meanwhile, Leicester are a point clear at the top of the table, but they have scored a disproportionately high number of goals from the penalty spot. And I don't think that's sustainable. They're going to need to get a little bit more creative in open play. 3 wins and 2 losses from their last 5. Probably dismayed to see the international break coming when it did, having won 3 straight heading into the break.
Definitely dismayed by that. And you mentioned it, not sustainable. I don't know if there's a single side that has performed well in the Premier League that has scored 41% of their goals from the penalty spot. That's where they're currently at. 7 of their 17
that's crazy.
Have been from the spot. Yes, they count the same. Yes, you won't be concerned that you've won matches. You've gotten a lot of points through 8 games, enough to be first place in the league. But long term, maybe not even against this one individual match against Liverpool, but long term, they're going to need to be a bit more creative. But again, you also think about it from another perspective. They've been fortunate because the guys who have came back, Wesley Fofana, Ricardo Pereira, Wilfred Ndidi, Kaglar Soyuncu, and Timothy Castagne. That's all guys who are now back in training from injury. That's a huge injury list. Talk about how Liverpool's is long. I think it's a bit more long-term injuries with Gomez and Van Dijk, both with knee injuries out for potentially an entire season. But that's a lot of guys missing for Leicester. So should you get those guys back fit and firing, I think they'll be back to their actual level, which I think is much higher than having 41% of your goals from the penalty spot. That being said, last year this was a great fixture. I believe it was a James Milner penalty very, very late on that won it in the 94th minute at Anfield in the same fixture. And I expect something similar because Liverpool are not going to be giving up too much. And I think they're going to want to try and curb the fact that their last 3 home games, they've conceded first every single time. They've won them in the end. But you still, I think, want an improved performance. And even without Gomez, we haven't even talked about him since he got his knee injury. He's out for potentially several months because of another knee injury. It's going to be fascinating. Brendan Rodgers' revenge tour, who knows? I think this game is the most exciting for me this weekend. And it should just be another great one.
The last for us this week, Wolves and Southampton. 2 teams, again, interesting projects. Wolves sitting ninth right now, 3 wins from 5, but they just don't look all that convincing right now. They have not quite gelled yet. Probably happy for the break, which obviously really isn't a break with all the international nonsense going on. Southampton were going into the break, winning 3 straight and 4 of 5. Look fantastic. Hasenhüttl has this team playing phenomenal football, perhaps highlighted by the 4-3 craziness over Villa with the magical James Ward-Prowse free kick masterclass.
Those free kicks, you remind me of them. Oh, they were phenomenal. They were art. That's what they were. Southampton, this is gonna be an interesting one because Wolves have kept more clean sheets in 2020 than any other team, 13 of them. Southampton are without Danny Ings, and we saw against Newcastle they got a good 2-0 win without Danny Ings. He's not going to be playing still because of a minor knee injury. So you mentioned that Southampton may be a bit less offensive power. Wolves, their strength is their ability to defend very, very well versus not creating a ton of chances. So this is going to be a matchup of 2 very good sides. Don't expect a ton of goals in it. But I think that this could be a really great test about where these sides are currently at. I think I'd give the edge to Wolves just because I expect them to break out. I think they've been below their level. They've still got a good amount of points. They're in 9th place. But I'm really just with the situation with Adama Traore. Not even starting most of the matches. He's one of the most electric players in all of the Premier League when he plays because of his ability of just power and just strength. So I think there's a lot of reasons for positives for Wolves. That being said, you mentioned Hasenhüttl. Wouldn't even be surprised if Southampton just conjured more goals out of nowhere, even without Danny Ings.
The Ings loss, I do think, is going to be problematic for them because they can't count on James Ward-Prowse magic, going forward. Mm-hmm. Southampton do sit 4th, but this is a match that Wolves need to win in order to kind of get into that 7th, 6th spot where they want to be.
Yeah.
And Southampton, they've already got 16 points on the season, which is
that's a great amount.
It took them a lot longer to get there last year than 9 or 8 matches.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned like 2 years ago, Wolves' first season, they did better than last season. I think they're going to want to try and get back to that first season in the Premier League level, and to do so, you have to be the Southamptons of the world, sides who are overperforming, who are maybe in your same, that they're jockeying for the same spots that you are. You don't have the same financial resources as the Big Six, but you have a lot of talent, a lot of good coaching. So this is a 6-pointer in the sense that you want to be the best of the other 14, and it's going to be fascinating to see who takes it.
Well, that'll do it for us for Week 9 preview. I never know what to think about these things, but there's a lot of tantalizing matches. Really looking forward to see where we end up. We'll look at the table coming out of this weekend. I know we've said that before, but this time we actually will. That is Jack. I am Conrad. This has been the 45. Please give us some comments. Let us know what you think. Subscribe, like us, and you can find us on the Twitter at the 45. Take care now.